The news didn't arrive with a bang, but rather as a subtle, persistent whisper that had lingered in the air for years. It was a whisper that had finally found its voice, echoing through the hallowed halls of power and Seoul. On September 15, 2025, a top official from South Korea's Ministry of Strategy and Finance made a seismic statement, one that would reverberate far beyond the walls of the assembly. The nation's economy, he declared, is deeply dependent on foreign workers, especially those from the Philippines. This revelation was not just a statement of fact but a call to acknowledge the unseen forces that had quietly fueled the nation's prosperity. For decades, this truth was an open secret, a silent engine powering the miracle on the Han River from the shadows, unseen yet indispensable. Now it was public, not a confession of weakness, but an embrace of a new global reality, a shift in perspective that recognized the interconnectedness of modern economies. South Korea, long proud of its homogeneity, was admitting both a vulnerability and a strength it had borrowed but rarely celebrated. This was a moment of introspection and transformation. Filipino workers, once seen as a temporary solution, were now recognized as pillars of the economy, their contributions finally acknowledged in the public sphere. The announcements sent ripples from Seoul to Manila and beyond, forcing other developed nations to confront their own reliance on migrant labor, a reality that many had chosen to ignore. In a small Filipino restaurant in Ansan, the news played on TV. Workers paused, their faces a mix of surprise and validation, as they realized their efforts were finally being recognized. For years their contributions were measured in remittances, not recognition. Now, they were finally seen, their hard work and dedication acknowledged on a global stage. This moment cracked the facade of national exceptionalism, revealing the intricate web of global interdependence that underpins modern economies. In a world shaped by demographic shifts, the myth of self-sufficiency was fading, giving way to a new understanding of shared human capital. South Korea's message was clear: human capital, no matter its origin, is indispensable. This was a call to embrace diversity and collaboration. The old models of economic strength are being rewritten, as nations around the world begin to recognize the value of their migrant workforces. The whisper of dependence has become a public roar, a call to action that cannot be ignored. The world is listening, and the future of global labor is being redefined as nations grapple with the realities of a changing workforce. The implications will echo for years to come, shaping policies and perceptions as the world moves towards a more inclusive and interconnected future. South Korea's economic miracle dazzles the world: Samsung, Hyundai, gleaming skyscrapers, and the global wave of KCulture. The country's transformation from war-torn poverty to a technological powerhouse is nothing short of astonishing, and its cities pulse with innovation and ambition. But behind the scenes of this rapid progress, it's Filipino workers who are the hands assembling smartphones, caring for the elderly, and welding ships. They are the silent force powering the engines of industry, often working long hours far from home, driven by hope and responsibility. They fill roles Koreans increasingly avoid, across factories, farms, and hospitals. From the assembly lines to the green fields and hospital wards, Filipinos step in where labor shortages threaten to slow Korea's relentless growth. This isn't a recent shift, it's a structural necessity that's grown for over 2 decades. As Korea's population ages and its youth seek white-collar jobs, the demand for foreign labor has only intensified, making Filipino workers indispensable. The employment permit system has seen a steady rise in Filipino participation, prized for their work ethic, adaptability, and willingness to take on tough jobs. Every year, more Filipinos arrive, ready to contribute to Korea's success story. Their labor keeps production lines moving and harvests from rotting. Without their dedication, many industries would grind to a halt, and supermarket shelves would be emptier. Filipino workers enable Korean industries to stay globally competitive, freeing locals for higher-skilled jobs, and supporting the nation's ambitions on the world stage. Their skills and perseverance are the invisible gears turning behind Korea's economic engine. Yet, for years, their vital role was long invisible. Background characters in Korea's success story, rarely acknowledged in public discourse or media. Now, the government's admission thrusts them into the spotlight. Public recognition is growing, and their stories are finally being told, sparking conversations about fairness and inclusion. The nation must confront the true foundation of its prosperity, acknowledging the essential contributions of migrant labor and the diversity that fuels its progress. The Filipino worker is no longer just a solution, they are the backbone, the steady hands and hopeful hearts that keep Korea's dreams alive. The story of Korea's rise is incomplete without them. Their journey is woven into the fabric of the nation's success, a testament to resilience, partnership, and the power of shared ambition. Let's zoom in on where Filipino workers are truly essential. In healthcare, they care for Korea's rapidly aging population, allowing families to stay in the workforce. In shipping, Filipino mariners crew Korea's massive vessels, ensuring exports reach the world. Their expertise keeps global supply chains running. In education and IT, Filipinos bridge language gaps and transfer knowledge, strengthening Korea's global business ties. Their impact is strategic, not just numerical. From family homes to the open sea, their presence is constant and indispensable. The Filipino role is diverse, specialized, and deeply embedded in daily life. Korea's confession is built on their skills and resilience. This is the reality behind the headlines. South Korea is facing a demographic crisis of historic proportions. Its birth rate is now the world's lowest, plunging far below the level needed to sustain its population. This isn't just a statistic, it's a warning sign that echoes through every corner of society. The consequences are already visible: a shrinking workforce, a rapidly growing elderly population, and mounting economic pressure on families and the state. Hospitals and care centers are filling up, while fewer young people are available to support the aging generation. Essential jobs in manufacturing, construction, and agriculture are increasingly left unfilled. Young Koreans, seeking higher education and different career paths, are turning away from these vital sectors, leaving gaps that threaten the nation's productivity and growth. To keep the economy running, the government has turned to foreign workers, especially Filipinos. This reliance is no longer a matter of choice or convenience, it has become a matter of national survival. Without the steady hands and dedication of these workers, factories would grind to a halt, construction would stall, and entire industries could collapse. The economy would simply not function as it does today. The generation that built modern Korea is now stepping back, retiring after decades of hard work. Meanwhile, the number of dependents, those who need care and support, continues to soar, putting even more strain on the system. Filipino caregivers and workers have become a lifeline, supporting not just individual families but the entire state. They fill crucial roles in hospitals, factories, and homes, bridging the gap left by a declining native workforce. In the face of this demographic winter, foreign workers provide much-needed warmth and stability. They bring new energy, skills, and hope to communities that might otherwise fade away. The government's public admission of this need marks a pragmatic shift in policy. The old ideal of ethnic homogeneity is giving way to a new reality, one where diversity is not just accepted but essential for survival. For Korea to thrive, it must embrace openness and welcome those willing to help build its future. The path forward depends on collaboration and acceptance. The need for people has become urgent and undeniable. Businesses, hospitals, and farms are all searching for new hands and fresh faces to keep their doors open. This moment marks a turning point in Korea's national identity. The country is being reshaped by the people who choose to call it home, regardless of where they were born. The future of Korea now depends on those who were once seen as outsiders. Together they are building a new chapter in the nation's story, one defined by resilience, diversity, and hope. Despite their importance, many Filipino workers in Korea face a harsh paradox. In the workplace, they're essential. In society, they're often outsiders, facing discrimination and isolation. Korea's history of homogeneity makes integration slow and difficult. Many endure long hours and tough conditions, hesitant to report abuses for fear of losing their jobs. Their resilience is remarkable, but it highlights their vulnerability. The government's admission is a call to move from tolerance to respect. Economic contribution should bring social recognition. This is the first step toward genuine integration. The journey from invisible to indispensable has begun. South Korea's announcement is more than domestic policy, it's a geopolitical signal. In a world of rising nationalism, Seoul's embrace of foreign labor is a bold counter-narrative. It pressures other nations like Japan to confront their own demographic crises. For the Philippines, it's newfound diplomatic leverage, no longer just a labor supplier, but a strategic partner. The status of overseas Filipino workers is elevated, demanding better treatment and rights. This shift creates new interdependence in Asia, reshaping regional power dynamics. The definition of national strength is changing, from industrial might to the ability to attract and integrate talent. Human capital is the new currency of power. Seoul's confession may spark a global rethinking of migration and economic strategy. The world is watching and learning. South Korea's story is part of a global pattern. The Filipino diaspora is essential worldwide. In the Middle East, they build cities and staff hospitals. In North America and Europe, they're the backbone of healthcare. Filipino seafarers keep global trade afloat. This global presence is the result of deliberate policy and a culture of resilience in education. Remittances fuel the Philippine economy, but the diaspora also wields soft power, building goodwill abroad. Korea's admission validates what's long been true. Filipino workers are foundational to many nations' prosperity. This recognition could inspire other countries to be more open about their own dependencies. A global reassessment of migrant labor's value may follow. The echo of Seoul's confession is being heard worldwide. The lesson from Korea is clear. Human capital is the world's most valuable resource. In an age of automation, people remain irreplaceable. Technology multiplies human effort, it doesn't replace it. When a nation runs out of willing workers, no machine can fill the gap. This is the dawn of the human capital revolution. Migration is now a core economic strategy, not just a social issue. Labor-exporting countries like the Philippines gain new power and responsibility. Their citizens are not just workers, they're partners in solving global demographic challenges. The narrative shifts from desperation to strategic advantage. A strong economy is open, diverse, and people-powered. South Korea's confession is a sermon for the new era. The world is waking up. People are the ultimate source of strength. The Filipino workers' story is entering a new chapter. Once invisible, their contributions are now recognized as indispensable. South Korea's public admission tears away the veil, forcing a long-overdue conversation. This is about more than labor. It's about dignity and shared prosperity. The transition to a multicultural society will be challenging, but the path is clearer. The goal, not just to work, but to be integrated and celebrated. This is the promise of Korea's admission, a promise activists will fight to fulfill. The world's success stories are built on migration and sacrifice. By acknowledging this, Korea shows its greatest strength: adaptation. A new chapter has begun. The indispensable are finally visible. The future belongs to those who recognize the value of every hand and every story.